Have you ever wondered who they were beneath the brims of fedoras and clouds of grief? Elijah and Elias, born of flame, but smoke and stack would soon become their names. In juke joints thick with jazz and whispered sin, their legend grew where shadows once had been. But long before they danced with men like Capone, they walked through fields of cotton all alone. Before the fame, the fights, the bootleg cash, they ran through Mississippi's summer flash, two boys beneath the heavy southern sky, just trying to dream while learning not to die. The world was harsh. Its lines were drawn in pain, yet they found laughter in the hardest rain. Tonight we'll trace their path through smoke and fear, from delta dusk to winds that whip the pier. So close your eyes, let go of time and care, and join us in the thick, warm midnight air. But first, before their story takes its place, let's soothe the body, calm the mind, and face the night with peace, with breath, and gentle grace. Now start with toes, just curl them tight and hold. Then let them go, relax, release control. Your legs, your thighs, tense gently, breathe it in. Then soften like a breeze upon the skin. Now feel your belly rise and slowly fall, your breath the wave that answers nature's call. Let chest expand, then melt into your spine, like southern heat that seeps through pines of time. Now lift your shoulders, feel the weight you bear, then let them drop, no need to leave them there. Your hands may clench, then drift like drifting leaves, as quiet fills the spaces stress once weaved. Unclench your jaw, your brow, behind your eyes. Let silence echo under starlit skies. You're safe, you're warm, there's nothing more to do. The night is here, and it will carry you. Now breathe once more, or start our tale so slow, of smoke and stack, and what the world should know. The house they knew stood near the edge of town, its wooden walls turned soft by heat and time. The crickets sang when sun was sinking down, their chorus stitched to night in steady rhyme. With windows wide to catch a whispered breeze, the walls would breathe like trees in southern air. Inside, two boys slept soundly, full of peace. Elijah, Elias, twin souls unaware. Before the fedoras and tales that they'd earn, before Capone's shadow would ever turn, they lived where soil was rich but hope ran lean, where sweat and prayer kept humble hands still clean. Their father left each dawn before first light, his boots on dusted paths both cracked and dry. He worked the mill from morning into night, with sawdust clinging, soot beneath each eye. Yet still he smiled when crossing through the door. Though labor bent his back, his eyes stayed warm. Their mother fed the earth near house and floor. She coaxed green life through summer's brutal storm. With beans and okra, tomatoes on the vine, she saved what wasn't eaten, sealed in brine. And though their purse held little more than air, she filled the house with love, enough to spare. The twins both shared a room with wooden walls, so thin they heard the outside world at play. They'd wake to watch the sky as morning calls, its blush of orange chasing night away. In silence they would whisper secret dreams, and let the dawn become their gentle guide. The lessons taught by golden spilling beams spoke softly, wait, the dark must always slide. From nearby pews the gospel music came, a Sunday balm that curled through cracks in space. Their mother hummed those hymns in steady flame, her rhythm moved with love and quiet grace. A whistle from a train would pierce the air, and fill the boys with hope they could not name. Beyond those tracks they sensed a world more fair, where freedom walked with less deceit or shame. Though born as twins with matching hands and face, their spirits carved divergent, separate pace. Elijah, younger, spoke with measured breath, and watched the clouds as if he studied death. He saw in dragonflies a kind of code, in shifting winds he found the future's mood. A watcher of the world, not quick to speak, he stored the world in stillness by the creek. But Elias, he was made of different fire. He spoke of plans and filled the rooms with dreams. A store, he said, then more, my whole empire. He saw the world in terms of coins and schemes. He saved their earnings, wrapped in paper tight, and hid them in the floor beneath their bed. Each nickel, each small cent, a spark of light toward owning what no man could steal instead. Barefoot they ran through streets with pine sweat breeze, with magnolias above and dust below. Those Moor twins people said with casual ease, yet those who knew could always feel the flow. Elijah walked like stillness made of grace, while Elias nodded, smiling into space. With age, their roles grew even more defined, one built in silence, one in social spin. Elijah's hands grew quick, precise, aligned, to fix, defend, or keep the danger in. He wasted nothing, neither words nor moves. In every blow he gave, he meant to prove. While Elias talked, the neighbors' wages up high, the bartered chores for coins he'd multiply. The day that Smoke was born began with fists. Some boys from town had cornered them for spite, but something sharp awakened in his wrists. He vanished, struck, then disappeared from sight. He moved like smoke, they cried with trembling breath, and thus the name was sealed like fate or death. Stack's name came with far gentler kind of flair. Behind the shop, a game of dice and chance. The owner saw the boy's calm, practiced care, as Elias stacked his winnings in a trance. "Look how you stack that cash," the man had said, and laughed while shaking slowly his old head. The name came home with him and stayed for good, a badge of wit the whole town understood. At night they lay beneath the pale moonlight, and dreamed of places trains might someday lead. Stack spoke of cities glowing in the night, of wealth and freedom grown from clever seed. Smoke didn't speak, but nodded in the dark, a silent oath beneath the window's arc. The stars above like quiet watchers shone on boys who didn't know what they would own. They only knew that what they had was small, and somewhere else they might yet have it all. For now they planned beneath that roof of pine, two mirrors, dreaming of a different time. Their room became much more than where they slept, a space where silent vows were slowly kept. While mother, father dreamed in beds nearby, the twins prepared for life beneath that sky. Smoke paced the floor in shadows, calm and keen, his feet a whisper on the worn wood grain. Each step rehearsed, precise, alert, unseen. He trained for storms he hadn't yet to name. Across the room, Stack spread his coins with care, their metal glinting in the lantern's glow. He sorted, counted, stacked them pair by pair, and watched them grow, row after patient row. To him, each number held a steady friend, a whisper of the future he could bend. Their mother paused some nights outside the door, and in the hush she noticed more and more the bruises Smoke would never voice or name, the way Stack smiled through every growing game. She saw the boy with fists and quiet eyes, and one who bartered truth with practiced lies. She gave them love in small and subtle ways, an extra biscuit, notes of gospel praise. She checked the hiding spots, ensured the pay was earned with honesty, not led astray. Even in sleep the twins would split apart, in rhythm set by soul and mind and heart. Smoke drifted fast into a dreamless rest, his body stilled, his breathing slow, his chest a quiet tide beneath the moonlit air, a fighter's calm without a hint of care. But Stack would toss and turn, then sit upright, and sketch new plans beneath the silver light, while Smoke lay peaceful, wrapped in slumber's cloth. His brother scribbled numbers into growth. Their clothing told the tale that words did not. Smoke wore what fit, what breathe, what bore no spot. His shirts were plain, his shoes scuffed, laces thin, prepared for flight or fight from deep within. But Stack would save and scrape to look the part, a polished collar, pressed with practiced art. He checked the mirror, tilt his chin just right, a businessman rehearsing for the night. Their voices, once the same in every tone, now marked them as two men, uniquely grown. Smoke rarely spoke, his words exact and few, but when he did, the room would listen too. Stack's voice could lift a silence with its spark, his laughter lighted corners cold and dark. He told his tales and gathered willing ears, and smiled away their doubts and all their fears. Some nights the rhythm of their dreams would blend, a thudding punch, a rustle without end. From out back came the strikes that Smoke would land, a feed sack hung by thread and steady hand. He hit not out of rage, but for control, each blow a note, each breath a measured goal. While from the house the sound of paper rolled, Stack counting wealth, imagining it gold. And though they differed more with every year, their bond held firm, their loyalty sincere. When tension came from boys who sought a fight, Smoke stood ahead, his silence sharp and tight. But when they sought a job or paid advance, Stack stepped in front, gave charm its proper chance. Together they would shift from role to role, a single heart split neatly into two souls. Smoke's legend grew in stillness, quiet grace, a mask of calm upon his watchful face. No hint betrayed the fire beneath his skin, until he struck and left no chance to win. He fought like solving problems in his head, a clean equation left with answers spread. He did not boast, nor sought a crowd's applause. He moved for need, not vanity or cause. But Stack, his gift was language, tone, and sway. He carved the truth in someone else's way. He read the room, then wrote its secret play, and turned their fears to favors in a day. He gathered whispers, bargains, silent tells, and held them all like goods upon his shelves. He saw in people what they failed to hide, then sold them dreams and made them feel like pride. At dusk they'd sit upon the porch's edge, where moonlight crept along the pinewood ledge. Their words grew rare, no need to voice their minds, their lives entwined, like smoke that shifting winds bind. Smoke rolled his shoulders, calm in every limb, while Stack weighed coins in plans grown lush and trim. Their silence said, together they would climb, a bond too strong for place, too deep for time. The jasmine bloomed, its scent upon the air, two shadows cast like twin truths laid out bare. One was the stillness, sharpened like a knife, the other charm and schemes and thirst for life. Each knew the world would try to pull them down, but side by side they'd rise beyond that town. For they were blood, and dreams, and something more. Smoke and Stack, two keys to the same locked door. The bell above the shop door chimed with grace, as springtime sun lit up the twins' calm face. The scent of beans and leather filled the air, with penny candy sweet and sugar fair. Old Wilson stood behind the counter wide, unpacking goods with weathered hands and pride. From Memphis came the parcels, crisp and clean, with bolts of cloth, tobacco, and caffeine. But near the front, a rare and silent thrill, a row of hats like time itself stood still. So many styles the town had never known, with colors bold and fabrics finely sewn. The brothers stopped, the air began to shift, as if the world prepared to offer gift. Each reached towards a hat that matched his spark, one bright with fire, the other cool and dark. Stack's hand went first to red with vivid gleam, a fedora like the ones he'd seen in dreams. He held it like a treasure made of flame, and traced its edge as if to sign his name. He checked the felt, the threading on the band, then held it like ambition in his hand. Smoke lingered near, his gaze more slow, precise. He stuttered every seam, each corner twice. A blue cap sat apart, without a shine, but something in its shape felt sure, like spine. He felt its weight, the fabric's gentle drag, a warrior's helm, disguised in humble rag. No mirror sought, no flourish in his stance. He moved in silence, deep within his trance. Stack found the shop's old mirror by the pane, and placed the red fedora on his mane. The sunlight kissed his cheek, his posture proud, a young man dreaming boldly, thinking loud. He tipped the brim with flair and gave a grin, imagining a world he'd rule and win. In glass he saw not dust or boyhood trace, but future carved in every line of face. While Smoke, with cap pulled low above his brow, walked slow, and let the shadows teach him how to disappear in quiet, steady stride, not hidden out of fear, but strength inside. The brim concealed the gleam behind his eyes, a mask that watched the world without disguise. He didn't need a mirror's brief applause. He knew his truth and walked it without pause. Their mother stepped inside the store and frowned at hats, not food, their earnings outward bound. Yet as she looked, her sternness slipped away, for what she saw she'd known since baby days. The red upon Elias burned with pride, while Smoke and blue stood shaded by his side. She said no word, but smiled from behind her hand, two boys becoming men, just as she'd planned. Old Wilson wrapped the hats in paper tight, with string to bind their choices in the light. And down the road they walked in quiet glee, with hats perching high like flags of destiny. The townsfolk paused to glance as they passed through, red catching sun and blue like morning dew. Stack tipped his brim when greeting those they met, each gesture smooth, each line a silhouette. He'd sweep it off in rooms, commanding grace, his smile already working every space, while Smoke would lower his when danger neared, a simple tilt, his message calmly steered. The cap became his shield, his silent claim, no flash, no noise, just presence wrapped in frame. As seasons changed and winds began to chill, the hats remained their signals, strong and still. The town would see the flash of red and grin, that must be Stack, ambition carved in skin. And sure enough, the blue cap followed near. Smoke's not far back, he'll make that path clear. The red declared a man who would be seen, a fire lit by dreams both sharp and keen. The blue, a current deep and flowing wide, where silence spoke and nothing need be tried. Together they became a mirrored blend, the shout, the hush, the purpose and the end. At dusk they walked beneath the golden sky, two shadows drawn where sun prepared goodbye. Their hats aglow with light from setting flame, two souls distinct, yet bound by name and name. The road behind them whispered soft and low, of men who chose which way their hearts would go. And in their gait, a language few could speak, one voice in silence, one with words to seek. They wore their truth like crowns of stitched intent, a rebel's peace, a scholar's firm assent. And all who watched could sense their quiet pride. Two boys in hats, the world still open wide. A southern night lay warm upon their backs, as homeward down the road they strolled in ease. The music from the dance still lingered, lax, while fireflies blinked like stars between the trees. The scent of jasmine clung to evening's breath. The moon hung low, a lantern full and round. Their steps were soft, their voices low and smooth, as laughter echoed faintly from the ground. Then Smoke slowed down. His shoulder brushed his kin's, his silence sharp, a warning made of steel. 4 figures stood ahead, no friendly grins, just shapes that blocked the road and meant to steal. Stack scanned the scene and knew what lay ahead. Billy Coates, the sheriff's son, and 3 who followed him like hounds without a thread of reason, drunk on pride and jealousy. "Well now," said Billy, voice like sour mash, "look what we got, the twins who walk like kings." The whiskey clung like a sweat, a bitter flash, his swagger laced with fear that power brings. The cicadas hushed. Smoke moved an inch, his weight now balanced, hands at ready rest. No words were said, no gesture made to flinch, just quiet warning in his steady chest. Stack raised a hand, his voice a silken stream. "Evening, Billy. Fine night for a stroll. You boys out chasing fireflies and dreams, or just too drunk to find your self-control?" He tipped his brim, the red fedora bold, a show of calm designed to cool the flame. But Billy's pride, too cheap and far too old, had burned too long to listen or feel shame. "You two don't know your place," he spat with spite. "My daddy says you're getting far too loud." His friends began to fan into the night, a crescent moon of fists within the crowd. Stack's voice flowed still, a stream that carved through stone, but every word made Billy's temper burn. "You cheated me," he shouted, all alone, "and Smoke don't show respect I think he's earned." Then came the spark. He lunged with reckless swing, but Smoke had seen the fight before it came. He caught the wrist and turned with practiced swing, and gently dropped the sheriff's son in shame. No blows were thrown, just balance, grip, and grace, and Billy hit the dirt without a sound. His friends surged forward, fury on each face, but Stack had moved and turned their force around. He flanked them fast, his voice a sudden whip. "Don't take another step, or you'll regret." And Smoke stood still, his gaze a tightening grip. No hatred, just a power cool and set. "This ends tonight," he said in a voice so clear. The words rang sharp and heavy through the dark. "Walk off." And slowly, breathing through his fear, young Billy rose, his pride a crumbling mark. "You're dead," he swore. "My daddy's gonna hear. You touched me, you'll be gone before the week." But as they left, retreating through their fear, the twins just watched, no need for words to speak. They turned and walked through cotton fields of white, their feet like shadows through the rose and leaves. The moon bore witness with its silver light, 2 brothers bound for fate that none believes. They knew the truth, this road had reached its end. In Mississippi, justice wore one face. It mattered not who struck or who could bend, just that 2 black boys had dared hold their place. At home, no speech was made, no tear was spilled. They packed in silence what they'd need to roam. Their mother, standing quiet, heart fulfilled with love and dread, just watched them leave their home. No scolding passed her lips, no voice of plea, just eyes that saw the future and the cost. She knew the world, its weight, its cruelty, but knew as well her sons would not be lost. And at the edge of town, the track stretched wide, a ribbon north through fog and unknown land. They clasped their hands, no need for words of pride, just strength exchanged in skin and silent stand. They vowed to live, to rise, to one day come back to the place that tried to cage their flame. Though night was long and far from any sun, they'd carry both their silence and their name. With pine and rain and stars above their heads, they walked beside the rail in perfect line. The past behind, the future still unread, but brotherhood their compass and their spine. Their hats sat firm beneath the weeping sky, one red like fire, one blue like midnight sigh. And in the dark, their shadows long and lean, they stepped towards fate, unbroken, strong, unseen. The train rolled slow beneath November skies, as iron wheels gave one last mournful cry. The station yawned, its breath a city gray, and Smoke and Stack stepped down, their hearts midway, still swaying with the rhythm of the track, with bags that bore their lives upon their backs. A razor shared, a change of clothes, a note of every dollar Stack had in his coat. The world they found was colder, tall, and strange, with shadows thrown from steel and windowed range. No fields, no stars, no sky as wide and free, just buildings pressed down like canopy. The people rushed, all locked in hurried schemes. No nods, no smiles, no space to chase old dreams. Stack squared his shoulders, red fedora high, while smoke below his cap beneath the sky. The cold arrived like blades beneath their skin, a northern wind that stole the breath within. Their southern coats, too thin, gave little aid, each cloud of breath a whisper softly frayed. They followed lines of street, so sharp and neat, so different from the dusty winding beat of roads back home where cotton touched the air. Here, only smoke and factories' iron stare. A name, an address scribbled on a sheet from someone who had fled that southern heat. The boarding house stood narrow, brick and plain, between a grocer's light and laundry's stain. The room held just 2 beds and little more, a window facing yet another door. That night they lay, not sleeping as they should. The city hummed where forests once had stood. The horns and rails replaced the cricket's choir, while distant music tangled with the wires. Not quite the same, said Stack with half a grin, and Smoke just hummed the city soaking in. At dawn the streets were loud with steps and wheels, a city never sleeping, never still. They searched for work, their accents drawing eyes, too southern for the pace, too new, too shy. Stack charmed his way to loading crates and freight, while Smoke was sent to where the oxen wait. The stockyard stank of blood, of sweat and bone, but Smoke endured, his silence now well known. The scents of home, of pine and jasmine bloom, were lost beneath the soot and factory fume. Their coats grew thick with coal and crowded breath, and Smoke would search his pillows, finding death of memory. No southern scent remained, just echoes of a world that had been stained. The snow began, a beauty brief and pale, that turned to slush beneath the trolley rail. They used their pay to buy what warmth could be, thick coats and scarves, and gloves that met the knee. The red fedora rose through steam and frost, still bold despite the innocence it lost. And Smoke's blue cap stayed low, a shaded sign, a shield against the glare in city line. Their hands grew hard with labor, calloused tight, as dawns turned to long, unending nights. Smoke's quiet strength brought notice at the yard, while Stack moved up through charm and walking smart. Their wages, tucked in tins beneath the bed, grew inch by inch as hope began to spread. At night they'd speak of home, of what they'd left, until the ache gave way to dreams bereft. They spoke of gaps, of cracks they might yet fill, of northern games that asked for southern skill. They learned the codes the city did not teach, what lies were law, what laws they had to breach. Stack found new doors and rooms that broke the rules, where whiskey flowed beneath the churchyard schools. He watched and learned, and ran small jobs with grace, out card game here, a wager there in place. And Smoke stood near, his silence loud and clear, a warning shadow others learned to fear. Their names began to pass through lips unknown. The boys from down below had seeds now sown. A man in furs admired Stack's swift recall, while Smoke could end a brawl without a brawl. The city watched. The city took them in, not gently, but with promise wrapped in sin. 6 months had passed, and on a corner bare, they stood with breath like smoke against the air. The stars they knew had vanished from the sky, but lights above now glowed like dreams nearby. Electric sparks replaced the southern moon, a different kind of beauty, cold and soon. Stack's hat was new, a deeper, richer red, his posture tall, ambition at full thread. Smoke's cap, though worn, sat firm upon his head, its meaning unchanged, though the body boy had fled. Between them passed no words, just quiet thought, a pact renewed without a sentence caught. They were not home, not yet, but far from lost. Each dollar earned, each frozen night the cost. And though the city changed the way they spoke, it couldn't seal the fire they had awoke. One step, then two, beneath the iron light, they moved ahead, still shadows in the night. 6 months had passed with little wealth to show, their days consumed in labor's steady flow. The same small room, the same sparse, silent meals, no matter how they bent beneath the wheels. Yet spring arrived with whispers on the air, and Chicago began to show its stare. Behind closed doors the city softly spoke, where rules were bent and promises were smoke. Stack found it first. His number swift and clean had caught the eye of men who moved unseen. One night when work was done, a voice drew near. "You're quick," it said, "and sharp enough to steer." A back room opened like a silent gate, where ledger books replaced the warehouse freight. The bootlegger slid across the desk. "Your gift," he said, "is rare and picturesque. And more than that," he said, "you hold your tongue. That's twice the worth when trouble comes unsung." For Smoke, the path appeared beneath his feet, through blood and sweat where brutal fists compete. A man who watched him work had seen the spark, a fighter's calm, a quiet full of dark. "Come watch," he said, and led him through a door behind a butcher shop with a sawdust floor. There in the basement, lit by smoky beams, the crowd was thick with shouts and broken dreams. When one man failed to fight the following week, Smoke stepped ahead, his eyes and shoulders sleek. He passed his cap to Stack with quiet grace, and walked into the ring with steady pace. No boast, no bark, just motion, sharp and lean, and fists that danced in rhythms smooth unseen. The music, too, now found them where they stood. Jazz floated from the alley's polished wood. Familiar chords with newer twists and turns, where southern roots met northern heat and drums. The songs of field and church had changed their dress, now played in rooms of whiskey and finesse. The twins would listen, caught in memory's swing, of hymns reformed with brass and scatter swing. Smoke's knuckles split, then healed, then split once more, each scar a tale of something earned in war. He learned the way a jab could kind of feint, the weight behind a hook, both sharp and faint. He moved with ease no teacher ever taught, a scholar's grace within a soldier's thought, and whispers followed every bout he fought. "Beware the one in blue, that boy's pure smoke." While Stack began to change in scent and shade, cologne replaced the sweat from games he played. His red fedora shimmered more refined, and doors swung wide to match his growing mind. He knew the ways to dress up crooked math, to scrub the ledgers clean of money's path. He mapped the flow of gold through hands unseen, and told of tale far smoother than routine. The rooms began to change as fortunes grew. New coats, a phonograph, some jazz records too. A chess set carved from dark and burnished wood. A bottle poured on nights when things felt good. But still they planned, and still they watched the ground. For every grain, they feared the world's rebound. Stack tracked their funds, each coin and dollar placed, while Smoke kept eyes on those who moved in haste. They knew the codes, the dangers, and the signs. They walked between the spaces and the lines. And word began to travel through the night of brothers who could solve both fear and spite. A bank job came not planned, but clear and fast. A chance that sparkled, simple, built to last. Stack saw the gaps, the guards who left their post, while Smoke ensured no one became a ghost. They took enough to speak, not loud but true, a message whispered through the city's blue. 3 days, and then a knock, a card, a name. No words exchanged, just time, place, and flame. The paper bore a spot they both now knew, an Italian place where power always grew. No need to ask who summoned them that night. The name Capone moved swiftly through the night. The rain fell thick, reflecting gas lamp fire, as puddles shimmered with the city's wire. They walked as one, red flash and shadowed blue, toward the door where old became new. Stack paused before the glass, his breath held tight. You ready? Smoke just nodded in the night. And through the door they stepped, the hush now deep, the world behind them folded fast asleep. Within the warmth of laughter, wine and flame, they left behind the boys who bore their name. For now the world would hear what legends track, the rise of Smoke and fire-hearted Stack. The name they made began to ripple wide. Chicago knew the twins from southern side. But fame, like rivers split by jagged stone, began to pull each brother off alone. What once were shared pursuits, a single aim, now curved like shadows reaching toward flame. One path through numbers, cool and clean and red, the other through the fists and things unsaid. Stack's talents found new weight in hush-toned rooms, where ledgers lived and money quietly bloomed. The Italians liked his calm, precise control, his ways of turning chaos into gold. He sat through nights with wine and cigarette, while plates were cleared and deals were quietly set. His red fedora shone through smoky haze, a mark of rising status and new phase. While Smoke across the city made his name, a ghost who stood where men forgot their shame. The Irish saw the power in his eyes, the silence steady, void of boast or guise. He watched the doors of speakeasies and bars, and settled fights like whispers under stars. No show of force, no threat in loud display, just quiet steps that made all wrath decay. Their home remained the stillness in between, a narrow room with habits wrapped in sheen, Stack counting bills beneath the lamplight low, while Smoke washed knuckles in a basin's flow. Their words were few, but every glance could share the weight of choices made out in the air. On Sundays, peace returned to how it was, a sizzle pan, fresh coffee, gentle pause. The bacon crackled, the window let in light, and Mississippi ghosts came back in flight. They spoke of home, of songs their mothers sang, of creekside days before the city rang. They never spoke of jobs, of who they knew, just warmth and skies once painted southern blue. Remember how she sang while stirring stew? Stack asked, his voice as soft as morning dew. His hat lay still beside the coffee cup, its crimson brim like dawn now lifting up. Smoke nodded once, his cap hung on the chair, a rare uncovered head in quiet air. I miss those songs, he said, and nothing more, the silence deeper than what came before. Yet through their bond remained, the space had grown, their days apart like seeds too far to sown. Stack's shoes now shined with polish, crisp and bright, his suits well fit, his collar starched white tight. Smoke wore no fashion, yet his clothes had changed, built not for show, but purpose prearranged. They talked as ghosts through different parts of town, two kings and realms where one could never crown. Then came the strain that none could yet reverse, a war between the gangs, now unrehearsed. A warehouse plain set near the river bend, a key to both sides of future and their end. The Irish wanted a hold through boots on floor, the Italians sent for papers stored. Stack took the job, retrieved the needed files, secured the deeds, ensure there were no trials. Smoke took his task, ensure the guards held fast, and keep the sight beneath his shadow cast. And neither knew the other bore the name of that same place, the target dressed in flame. Till late that night, at home beneath one light, they dressed in silence, something feeling right, then wrong. They paused and looked and felt the sting of fate's sharp coil unraveling its ring. O'Malley's treated me with fairness, true, said Smoke, his voice as steady as the blue that lined his cap, now resting near his hand, its brim worn soft from work he hadn't planned. Moretti took us in, Stack said with care. He gave us trust when no one else would dare. His fingers touched the rim of red and thought of all the gain and what that gain had bought. No shouting came, no accusations raised, just silence thick with loyalty, amazed. They knew this day would come, though none could say just how the lines would shift to cast delay. And yet, beneath that room's forgiving roof, they reached a vow both sacred and aloof. Their caps sat side by side upon the wood, two colors touching where their blood once stood. Brothers first, said Stack, his tone sincere. Brothers only, Smoke replied, still clear. The clock ticked on, but time had ceased to press. Their words had drawn a line in quietness. And through the window stars began to fade, while plans were laid and murmurs not betrayed. The sunrise found them where the vow was made, still seated, eyes like blades that never swayed. They'd find a way, they swore, without divide, to walk both lines and never choose one side. The city's pull would stretch and strain their thread, but bonds like theirs refused to snap or shred. And so they planned, with logic carved in trust, to stay alive, stay clean, and do what's just. Whatever war the streets might wish to stage, their hearts would fight to never let it cage. The wealth and power bloomed with steady pace. A quiet ache began to take its place. For every nod and whisper in the street, a ghost of Mississippi stayed discreet. When moments stilled between the city's hum, the hearts would drift to where they both came from, to crickets singing through a moonlit breeze, to dirt roads winding under cypress trees. One Tuesday morn in spring, the stillness broke. A letter came with cousin's careful stroke. It sat 3 days upon the table bare, untouched, unopened, steeped in silent care. They knew the shape of news that traveled slow, for home wrote only when it had to show. And when Stack dared to break the paper's seal, the words within revealed what they could feel. She asks for us, he said with a lowered tone, and placed the letter down, its weight full grown. No toss of risk, no thoughts of years now past, just silence deep and truth too large to cast. They stored it where they kept their rarest things, beside a deed and dreams with steady wings. The days that followed softened both their ways. Stack took off his hat, more in evening haze. He hummed those hymns their mother used to sing, and turned the brim with thumb and gentle swing. The notes would drift like ghosts across the room, each melody a bloom inside the gloom. You know she never needed hymnal page, he said one night, his voice just touched with age. Smoke gave a nod, his eyes half closed with grace, the memory etched clearly in his face. Smoke, too, would stand and watch the snow fall near, imagining warm rains he used to hear. The porch, the puddles, Mama's distant call. Don't drag that mud across my floor at all. The weight of memory pressed on his chest until he swore he felt the delta's breath. They gathered blues records, the songs from back home, the voices rough, the stories carved in stone. The scratch of vinyl sang of loss and grace, of cotton fields, of longing's quiet face. Stack closed his eyes and let the chords replay, while Smoke sat still, not wasting word or sway. That one sounds like old Johnson's hand, he said, more words than most days ever softly bled. One Sunday, Stack went searching store to store for preaches that felt just like hers and more. He tried to bake a cobbler just so right, the smell of cinnamon and sugar bright. It wasn't perfect, crust too thick and firm, but when they took a bite, the past returned. Their eyes grew wet, their voices held at bay. The taste had brought their childhood back halfway. Almost like hers, said Smoke with quiet tone, which from him meant it stood in class alone. And though Chicago praised their rising names, the silence whispered deeper than their fame. The suits, the shoes, the properties they'd bought never could fill the space that time forgot. The songs their mothers sang still stirred their bones, more real than deals or territory zones. They still call us Elijah, Elias there, said Stack one night beneath the kitchen glare. His voice betrayed a tremble barely shown, a truth too big to carry all alone. Then, wordless, they unfurled a map with care, its paper worn, its edges curled with wear. Their fingers traced the roads that wound down south, the towns they knew still sleeping, word of mouth. Each line a thread that pulled them through the years, a path of longing paved with hopes and fears. We can't go back like this, said Smoke at last. We're fugitives, they've never let it pass. No, Stack replied, his shoulders pulled in tight. We'll go as men of means, we'll make it right. And there they formed a plan without a sound. No gold would weigh more than the home they'd found. Not the house, but the place their names had grown, where love had walked the floorboards they had known, where boys once laughed in puddles, bare of pride, before the world had taught their names to hide. That night they slept with peace they hadn't felt, since fleeing fast from where the past had dwelt. No longer torn, no longer pushed by need, they built a way to heal what time had bleed. Chicago gave them fortune, weight, and scars, but never home nor comfort from the stars. And so they'd rise with purpose now made clear, to shape a life they could return them near. Not as the boys who vanished in the dark, but men whose names would echo like a spark. 7 long years had carved a winding trail through northern streets, through frost and fortune's veil. The Moore boys, now full men with sharpened edge, sat silent at their kitchen's worn-out ledge. A telegram lay flat between their hands, the final pull from deep, familiar lands. Their mother's health, now failing, sparked the flame that whispered home, though neither spoke her name. They'd built a life of weight and wary grace, but some things rest beneath what time can chase. No deal, no deed, no power in the air could hush the ache of roots still waiting there. So quietly they made their final plans, transferred their names from papers, deeds in hands. Stack counted coins and contracts tied with thread, while Smoke ensured no debts were left unpaid. With all affairs secured and silence met, they boarded south with past they'd not forget. The train rolled slowly out of soot-stained gray, while open fields grew closer every day. The skyline shrank as farmland spread its arms. The steel gave way to soil, sun and farms. Stack watched it all unfold, hat on his knee, while Smoke, cap low, sat still in reverie. Air feels different now, he said at last, as Tennessee's warm breeze went drifting past. He cracked the window, letting in the scent of pine and loam, of time and what it meant. Stack closed his eyes and nodded with a smile that spoke of things unsaid across the miles. Sounds different too, he said, as rails gave beat, the rhythm quickening beneath their feet. The sky grew wide, the clouds began to thin, and Mississippi called them home again. The thickened air wrapped around them like a sheet, a weight of memory both soft and sweet. Stack held his hat like prayer upon his lap, while Smoke raised his, revealing more than scrap, his face more open now beneath the rim, a sign of peace returning deep within. No words were needed on that final ride, for every mile reclaimed the peace inside. Their luggage carried more than suits and ties. It held redemption, gifts, and hopeful sighs. The medicine, the cloth, the radio bright, were not just wealth, but symbols made of light. Think coat still rules? Asked Stack, a sideways glance. Won't matter, Smoke replied without pretense. They weren't the boys who once had fled through corn, but men with names that cities learned to mourn. The engine hissed, the metal brake line sighed, and time stood still as wheels began to slide. The station came in view with fading steam, as if it rose out from a distant dream. They stepped onto the platform, worn but tall, the Mississippi soil beneath it oil. The air was thick with heat and sweet perfume of jasmine vines and storms that threatened soon, and something in their spines began to melt, a burden they'd carried without knowing felt. Chicago's chill, its corners carved with steel, fell off their backs beneath the southern feel. They stood together, scanning every face, each wrinkle in the town, each weathered place. The buildings looked more tired, sky more vast, the future somehow reaching through the past. Ready? Said Stack, his voice a quiet thread. He set his fedora back upon his head. Smoke nodded once, his cap now raised in light, exposing eyes that once had known pure fright. And side by side they stepped through open air, toward what would wait, be it embrace or glare. Whatever came, they'd face it just the same, for they had left, but never lost the flame. The town that shaped their roots, their pain, their pride, would see them now as brothers unified. Not fugitives with fear beneath their coat, but men of steel who walked with careful note. Chicago gave them names that struck like gold, but here they bore the names that made them bold. Elijah, Elias, boys turned into flame, returning not for glory, but for name. And through the heat, the soil, the wind, the pine, they walked once more the edge of that thin line, where who they were met who they'd dare become, and all they built returned to where it's from. As sleep begins to wrap you in its grace, imagine now a quiet southern place. The sawmill stands beneath the moon's soft glow, its boards long bowed from rain and years of snow. But soon this place will hum with life once more, with laughter rising through a jukebox door. Where once the sound of sawing filled the air, will come the tones of jazz and love and care. Club Juke, they'll call it, born from roots and flame. A dream rebuilt, yet never quite the same. Smoke and Stack now stand in twilight's hush, their journey marked in silence, not in rush. The blue cap low, the red fedora bright, together once again beneath the night. No need for words, their bond too deeply sown, to different roads that led them safely home. The crickets sing the lullabies they knew, when barefoot boys ran laughing through the dew. That song still plays beneath the delta stars, unchanged by time, unshaken by their scars. So let that song now carry you to rest, with heartbeats slow and breath within your chest. For even those who've wandered far and wide still find their way where memories reside. And in your dreams may quiet strength remain, like smoke and stack, through joy, through loss, through rain.